What are some not fun facts? If you show symptoms of rabies, your chances of dying are nearly 100%. If you're going to be murdered, chances are very good you've already met your killer. In their Greek mythology origins, centaurs are all males and procreate solely by rape of human females. Whales and dolphins die by not having enough energy to surface for air, so they slowly sink into the depths of the ocean and suffocate. Edit, as a part Welshman, all these comments about whales made me laugh a lot. In Australia, there is a plant called the gympie gympie, otherwise known as the suicide plant. When touched, it delivers multiple stings with a long-lasting neurotoxin, that is so painful that people would rather kill themselves than live through a few days of excruciating pain, and then a further several years of lesser pain, or full reoccurrence in the correct conditions. If the tiny hairs that deliver the stings are not removed, or are buried, the pain will continue for years. The pain, which has been described as feeling like being doused in hot acid and being electrocuted simultaneously, is so bad that people have been driven mad by it. Horses who have been stung by this plant have literally thrown themselves off cliffs. An ex-serviceman named Cyril Bromley is known to have fallen into one of the plants during World War II. Driven mad by it, he had to be strapped to a bed to prevent himself from committing suicide. Another rather unfortunate officer is known to have shot himself in the head after using one of the plant's leaves as toilet paper. Rather than live with the pain in his rear end, he chose to end his life. Banana republics were coined in the book Cabbages and Kings, about small countries based around single exports that were taken advantage of by large corporations. That company taking advantage of them for the book rebranded and is now called Chiquita. There's somebody out there that you're completely compatible with and you get along perfectly and it's your perfect partner, but you'll probably never get to meet them. Over 300 people are believed to have jumped from the World Trade Center on the 11th of September. One of the falling bodies killed a fireman at the scene. On top of that, there are still over 1,000 victims whose remains have not been found. There once lived a man known as Ta'a who is known as the hungriest man in history. Despite being average to below average weight, he lived his whole life with a nearly endless, insanely ravenous hunger. He would eat anything and everything he could find. Since his family couldn't accommodate him, he took to the streets where he'd eat all the raw meat, rotting fruit, live rodents, and other small animals he could find. He used this horrific skill to become a street performer where people would give him barrels full of cork, huge baskets of apples, more live animals, and sometimes rocks just to witness him swallow it all with these. There are other disgusting aspects of Tare's life that are worth reading about. I think the least fun fact about him is that he was caught several times trying to eat bodies from a hospital morgue. He was also suspected to have consumed a toddler at the same hospital. It's one of the most disgusting yet fascinating stories I've ever read. Up until the 1980s, babies weren't put on painkillers during surgery. It was believed they didn't feel pain. The Great Molasses Flood, sometimes referred to locally as the Boston Massacre, occurred on January 15, 1919, in the North End neighborhood of Boston, Massachusetts. 21 people drowned in a wave of hot molasses. You've walked by and seen people that have died very painfully in the last year. Michael Cardamone raped a 15-year-old girl, served 6 years, then got parole. He kidnapped a 49-year-old mother of 2, gagged her, beat her with a hammer, injected battery acid into her, burned her alive, then ran her corpse over with the lady's own car twice. I had to witness this guy go to court to appeal his murder charge for my work experience, and he really gave me the chills. Male dolphins have been observed to gang rape females, kill dolphin babies that are not their own so their mums are available again, and for absolutely no reason other than entertainment brutalize porpoise young. For a very long time, beheading was used as a form of execution because it was believed it resulted in instantaneous death. For quite some time, there was suspicion that this wasn't the case, but many rules and regulations governing the use of cadavers limited doctors from thoroughly investigating enough to challenge the practice. However, at the turn of the 20th century, a French doctor, Barriou, was permitted to make an investigation of a severed head from a criminal named Langwill, immediately after guillotining. He notes his observations: "Here is what I was able to note immediately after the decapitation. The eyelids and lips of the decapitated man worked in irregularly rhythmic contractions for about 4 or 6 seconds. I waited several seconds longer. The spasmodic movements ceased. The face relaxed, the lids half closed in the eyeballs, leaving only the white of the conjunctiva visible, exactly as in the dying whom we have occasion to see every day. It was then that I called in a strong, sharp voice, 'Langwill.' I then saw the eyelids slowly lift up, without any spasmodic contraction. I insist advisedly on this peculiarity, but with an even movement, quite distinct and normal, such as happens in everyday life, with people awake and not torn from their thoughts. Next, Langwill's eyes very definitely fixed themselves on mine and the pupils focused themselves. I was not, then, dealing with a vague dull look, without any expression that can be observed any day in dying people to whom one speaks. I was dealing with undeniably living eyes which were looking at me. Every person who was ever decapitated was most likely aware of their predicament for a short time following their death. The British East India Company took over Bengal, India, and their policies caused the Great Bengal Famine of 1770. It caused the death of 10 million, a third of the population. If someone threatens you with a weapon and they want to move you to another location, your chance of dying increases tenfold if you agree to relocate. The Mongolians, to ensure everyone showed up for a war, would issue a proclamation saying that the last person who showed up to training camp would be tortured and murdered in front of everyone. The last legal execution by drawing and quartering happened the year Henry David Thoreau was born. Of 11,000 Civil War battlefield surgeons, only 327 had pre-war experience with surgery. The first 5 people who stopped applauding at Stalin's 1938 Presidium were sent to the Gulag for 10 years. Their crime was that they stopped applauding. Joseph Mengele kept a collection of children's eyes pinned to the wall in his office. In the Vietnam War, American forces fired 50,000 bullets for every dead enemy. Gang violence in New York saw a 600% increase on the 11th of September. J.D. Salinger carried the first draft of Catcher in the Rye in his breast pocket as he stormed Omaha Beach. His trauma contributed to Holden Caulfield's. In 1973, 75% of American 25-year-olds lived with their spouse. Now, it's 19%. Ronald McDonald was quietly phased out of all McDonald's advertising in 2013. Kellogg's Corn Flakes was originally marketed as an anti-masturbation cereal, and advertisements told parents that if their boys ate it they wouldn't commit the sin of masturbation. Tim Allen got caught in an airport with 1.5 pounds of cocaine and only served 3 years in prison. 200,000 Americans die each year because of human error in hospitals. Bears are cannibals, they eat their own cubs after hibernation. Male bears, like pigs, are called boars and female bears, like pigs, are called sows. Humans are the only animal that are aware most of their lives that they will eventually die. When humans go through emotional toil, their amygdala increases in size and hippocampus decreases. Slowly, the hippocampus will return to normal, but the amygdala never will. Doctors are not allowed to participate in executions because of the Hippocratic Oath. The executors are usually not professionals, hence the high rate of botched executions. Because there is no sound in the vacuum of space, a human fart is louder than a supernova. It was legal to mail children in packages via the USPS from 1913 to 1920. 25 million people are sex slaves at this very moment. Edit, Gulag bonus round. At the end of a cattle train carrying prisoners there was usually a drag, a metal scraper with teeth which passed close to the ties and caught the body of anyone trying to escape, and dragged him over the ties to his death. Next to the Gorky amusement park in Ukraine, under the swings and carousel, and the funhouse and the games area, 9,439 corpses were found in a mass grave in the 1960s. There were no bowls, spoons, or forks at the transit prisons and the prisoners had none of their own either. They were herded to the boiler by the dozens and the mash was ladled into their caps or the flaps of their jackets. In 1905, the documented height of capital punishment in Russia, 45 prisoners were shot each month, but it is well documented that in one prison in Leningrad alone, they shot more than 200 men every night through the whole of 1937.